Welcome back to Felicity Was Here. I'm Heather.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Dr. Joe.
And today we're discussing Felicity Season 1, Episode 19, Docuventary. Welcome back, everyone. How's it going, ladies?
Hi.
Hi, going good.
Awesome.
How are you?
Good. The weather finally got nice in LA, at least on the weekend. The weekdays are usually really nice, and then lately the weekends have been rainy, which sucks. So this weekend is sunny, and it makes me happy.
Excellent.
Well, at the top of the episode today, we wanted to give another shout out to a new listener, a new Felicity fan too, which got me thinking, what do we think we should call the Felicity fandom? There's just Harry Styles or Harry heads. We can't do like Felicity fanatics, sounds like long and stupid. So then I was thinking Harry Potter fans are Potterheads. What if we do Porterheads?
That's cool.
That's something.
It's also like the acronym of our podcast is it's like FWHers. There was nothing clever. I couldn't think of anything to call the fandom.
I wanted it to be haters, like HEY haters, because they say hey all the time.
Too.
But it sounds kind of negative.
Yeah.
But I still like that it's haters. It's funny. Like you have to be in it to understand the joke.
To know that that's actually a good thing.
I think that's fine.
It's just because
I think it's okay. We could be the haters.
We should take a poll. I am a hater.
Well, we've got a new listener and a new fan of the show Felicity in general. We got a note from Kimmy on Instagram. And Kimmy says, "This is my first time watching Felicity. I'm currently binging. I'm on season 2 now and also watching along with you guys. So I will be watching twice, LOL. I can't believe I waited so long to watch this show. It's so good. And your podcast is the best." So just wanted to say thank you, Kimmy, for the comment. We're so happy that you found this show. We obviously have loved it for 25 years. And yeah, it was kind of more of a niche fandom out there. So whenever new people find the show, we absolutely love it. And we're glad that it still resonates with people.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimmy. You're a hater now.
Or a Porterhead, whichever one you want. You could choose.
You can choose. Kimmy, you can choose.
So thank you for listening. We're so glad you're liking the pod. And please, all other listeners, we love hearing from you. So please keep the very sweet comments coming, whether it's email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you like. But we're going to go ahead and dive into the episode now for Docuventary. As a reminder, last week on Julie's birthday episode, Carol came back into her life to tell her that she lied. She really is her birth mother. Unfortunately, though, she wanted to keep Julie a secret from her husband, who is actually Julie's birth father, which was another big twist. And Julie wasn't cool with that, and rightly so. Ben also started gambling on sports through Lynn and Lynn's bookie, Barry. Noel also considered moving out of the dorms, but Felicity convinced him to stay so that they could work on whatever they were, are, or might be someday. Plus, we also met Megan's parents, who got a peek inside her box, which sounds dirtier than it is.
Good one, girl.
Pause for laughter. No.
I'm going to cut it.
Thank
It'll
you.
sound like I laughed right after.
That'll be my new signal. Like, can you all laugh at my jokes? No. I'll be here all week. Tip your
Put
service.
fake laughter in.
A little laugh track. I like it. But this week on Docuventary, Sean's latest entrepreneurial idea involves the whole group. And it's getting everyone on camera to talk about their issues for a documentary. So Felicity and Noel try to start over as friends. We'll see if they can actually pull that off. And Ben digs a little bit of a deeper gambling hole after finding out that he owes a pretty big chunk of tuition at the end of the year here. And that starts to bother Julie. So this week we open with Ben sitting in a chair, but the shot is very grainy and very VHS-esque. In the background, we hear Sean telling him to just start talking about college. And in my opinion, Ben is like the worst person to ask to just sit and talk ad nauseum about anything and everything, because he's not exactly the most open book for everyone on the cast there. But he just wants him to talk about college, and clearly is being recorded on camera. But Ben kind of tries, and he's like, you know what, never mind. He starts to get up to go, but Sean says, if you sit down and let me interview you for this documentary. You will not have to pay rent this month. And that's all Ben really needed to hear. So he sits back down. So we learn that Sean is shooting a documentary because some guy out there made $500,000 for actually shooting a documentary about miners or something.
Steel mill?
Steel mill, yeah, some kind of hard labor. And so now he thinks he can also make a documentary and make $500,000 out of this. And so his idea is filming college kids to talk about the college experience. So this is his next get rich quick scheme, even though he obviously has no clue how to make any kind of film and not a documentary either. So they kind of keep talking about college, and then we see the picture gets all wiggly and it's kind of off color. And Ben says that there is smoke coming out of his camera and he needs to get a new camera. So that was the cold open. It was very, very funny. I thought it was also very creative and thought we should talk about reality TV just for a little bit of more context.
I'm so excited.
I was just going to bring up at this time I was watching The Real World and I was so into that.
Yeah.
So I probably would have watched a documentary about college life like he was talking about.
If this were on TV today, I 100% would watch it. It'd be on Bravo and I'd be obsessed
Yeah,
with
Bravo.
it because that's like the only other TV I watch these days live. But we looked into just kind of the history a little bit of reality TV. And in 1998, 1999, I guess by the air date of this episode, it was still a relatively new format for TV. I mean, there was like Candid Camera and the Cops TV show. But it really started taking off in the late 90s with MTV. The Real World premiered on MTV in 1992. Road Rules then premiered in 95 and The Challenge in 1998. So that's really when things started to hit their stride at MTV, and it was really targeted toward that 18 to 34 demographic being on MTV. So it was really popular with our age group back then too. And then the movie
Yes.
The Truman Show also came out in 1998, which also felt like a strange concept of we're going to film this person in their everyday life and just have it streaming all day long. And you're just going to see the random day-to-day life of some guy. And as a fictional story, that was also kind of a strange concept. So this episode for Docuventary was just on the heels of MTV's first run at reality TV, but this was before The Bachelor, before Survivor, before Big Brother. This format was still very, very new.
I have to give a shout out to one of my favorite reality shows when I was even younger, before high school. It was called Bug Juice on the Disney Channel.
Yes!
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Doesn't come in a jar.
Yes! They followed kids at summer camp and just their daily activities and like the little dramas that would happen, and I was obsessed with it. I never got to go to summer camp, but I loved watching these kids. So yeah, that was like the OG reality show for me.
They need to put that on Disney
Yeah.
Plus. I would rewatch the heck out of Bug Juice.
Yeah. Are we sure it's not on there? Maybe.
I guess I'm not sure, but I feel like if I had seen it in
Yeah.
the scrolling cues, I would have stopped
Yeah.
and watched it immediately. But maybe it's just like really, really buried deep in there.
Okay, I'll check.
And then also just looking into this episode itself, JJ and Matt co-wrote this episode. And I think this also just goes to show their willingness to experiment with TV. Like they're both relatively new to directing and writing and doing TV and eventually film, but it's a very grounded show, but I think it still shows that they're willing to experiment with different formats and it's kind of meta, like a show within a show to having this reality format and kind of test that. And I just thought it was really creative. And I know Dr. Joe, you might not agree, but I think all of the documentary scenes are really funny in this episode too. And I love how they balance the sometimes sad moments with the really funny moments in this show too.
I didn't hate it on this rewatch,
Okay, good.
but I wanted to add one thing. The trivia, according to IMDb, part of the reason why they did the episode this way was to cut filming costs and to stay within the budget. But that's still a very clever way to do that. So I do appreciate the creativity of doing it in that way and like, okay, let's make the most of this and do something that's different.
Being the nerd that I am, I have the DVDs of all 4 seasons, and some of them have commentary on certain episodes. And so I think it's actually in later seasons they switched to the documentary format for the budget. I don't think they had a budget cut yet in season 1. But that is a good point. Like it does later on. I think they start to rely a little more heavily on the handheld camera because of, budget constraints. So that's a great point to bring up.
Interesting. Well, maybe IMDb lied to me. But also, want to give a shout out to 90210. My 90210 connection for this episode. They did a parody spoof thing of The Real World. March 15th, 1995 is when it premiered. It was season 5, episode 24, and it was called The Unreal World. And it was for a class project, and it was really funny. It was also dramatic and had some love stuff going on, like people like getting back together and not getting back together, and it was very funny too. So there you go.
Well, that is a very good real world connection to 90210. And also wanted to bring up She's All That, which premiered in 1999. The like skeezy boyfriend was on The Real World. And I remember thinking that was so cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I had cable back then, and so I'd never seen the show. And so, yeah, that all seemed very interesting. So, yeah, it was really hot at that time. And now it's just like, we consider it, it's just a part of TV, and there's so many options out there. But
Right.
that was, very indicative of the time. So then we go to Felicity's room where she's recording to Sally. Still haven't heard back from Sally in a while, but Felicity is still sending tapes. But she does admit that life has been busy, and she apologizes for not sending tape last week. But she tells Sally that she basically can tell what her workload is going to be like that week based on the cafeteria menu. That pasta means it's going to be a hell of a week. And she saw, I think, lasagna on the menu this week. So she knew that this was going to be an awful week. She then tells Sally that Noel decided not to move, but that they haven't really talked, even though they live down the hall from each other. And she does say that she misses him. She's like, but I'd probably miss him more if I wasn't so busy with McGrath's seminar. So we see Felicity and Elena come out of lecture, and they're talking about how Felicity thinks McGrath acts like he hates her. Elena's like, no, he acts like that with everyone. She says, not with you, Elena. Everyone else is like Miss Porter, Mr. Smith, but you're Elena. And I gagged in my mouth a little bit. It's gross. But they're now checking their mail, and Guy is also checking his mail, and he exclaims because he got 2 tickets to Late Night with Conan O'Brien, who was
That would have been so
the best.
exciting. I remember watching him when I was
He was the
younger.
best.
I got to go on the late night show as a audience member. back in the
Really?
day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was visiting my brother, and he got us tickets. And I remember the guests were Ivanka Trump and Jeff Goldblum.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
I remember being probably insanely jealous.
Uh-huh.
Like, damn.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Who was the second one? Sorry, Jeff Goldblum?
Jeff Goldblum.
Wow. Is that during Jurassic Park Day?
And no, it was a little later than that. Yeah, it was later than that. I'll have to go back and see if it's like online and I can watch it again. But yeah, it was such a fun experience. I miss Conan.
Triumph the Insult Dog?
He's still working, and he, in fact, was very recently on an episode of Hot Ones.
Oh, okay.
Do y'all watch Hot
I
Ones?
don't.
I love Hot Ones, yeah.
I do too. I think it's so funny. It's so clever. He's a really amazing interviewer, Sean Evans, and he's from the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, isn't it Palatine, I think?
Or Naperville, some one of those things. yeah.
Naperville, one of those, but yeah.
He's from around.
I learned that too. I was like, crazy.
Yeah.
I think he was interviewing someone else from the Chicago area. He's like, oh yeah, I'm from blah, blah, blah. Or no, Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake is where he's from.
Oh.
Yeah, couldn't believe that. And now we're on a Hot Ones tangent. But yeah, I think Conan has a new like travel show, is it?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh,
I know
cool.
he promoted it, but I was not paying attention to that part. I was just laughing. He was so funny. So yeah, he's still working. He's still got some shows. So good for him. All these many, many, many years later, he's still doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, he deserves it. He's awesome. So yeah, Guy's super excited. He's got 2 tickets. He's going to try and ask a girl to go with him, and they're probably all going to turn him down. But then we get more scenes, and the whole show is alternating between normal shots that we see in the show and this documentary film VHS wibbly kind of picture. So Sean goes to the dorms, and he interviews Julie. Julie says that the best part about college is the friends that you make along the way, which is kind of funny because I feel like she doesn't have a ton of friends outside of Ben and
No.
Felicity. But
Weird.
whatever.
Excuse me? Do you not recall her birthday party?
Right.
Everybody loves her. What
Yeah.
are you talking about? The whole dorm came out.
That's true. The whole dorm was there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, but we didn't recognize anyone. It's those
Yeah.
couple people.
They were there for the cake. But then Noel knocks on the door and is probably handing out the floor calendar or something. And Sean tells him about his documentary and that it's basically about college kids venting about college. And I totally forgot that Noel is actually the one who says, hey, you should call it Docuventary. Sean loves it. He's like, hey, why don't you design a graphic for the film for exposure? And I'm like, oh no, Sean. I think, was he the one who invented doing something for exposure? So in my world, in PR, marketing, influencers, like everything is like, I can't pay you, but you can do this for the exposure. And that's supposed to pay your bills or something. It's become a joke now in the industry. There's like a whole Twitter or X account about like people asking for things for free, but you'd get exposure. It's hilarious that he said that. It's like, no, I don't have any money. I won't pay you. You're not worth that, but you'll get this exposure. So I just thought it was really funny. I'm like, of course, Sean is like a for the exposure type of guy.
That's funny. Well, we're available for exposure if anybody wants to, say hey and have us come with them.
We will take exposure. That's true. We love exposure here at Felicity Was Here Pod. But Noel is psyched because, he's a college kid and he had one little exhibit for his graphic design. So he's going to do that. So he leaves and Sean asks Julie about him and Felicity. And Julie says that being friends is complicated, especially if you kiss your friend or someone else from their past comes back. And it's just very complicated being friends with people in college. And then Sean interviews Richard, who explains that he's the middle child of 7 kids. So he loves college because he only has one roommate to deal with instead of 6 siblings. And Joe, wanted to pass it to you. Is this middle child syndrome? Is there any truth to that? Does this explain any of his behavior?
I think for the purposes of the show, it does. But I did look up some actual research articles, and they said it wasn't really that much of a connection. It's not as founded as people think it is. It's just kind of like anecdotal, or it's just a cultural belief we have, but it's not really been, the research doesn't really bear that out.
Interesting. Because, I definitely feel like his behavior is very attention-seeking. It's like middle child syndrome, like, look at me, give me attention. But...
Well, too, also, Tim trying to have all these things he wants, like, I want a satellite dish, I want a barbecue. He can finally, he doesn't have to compete for resources. He can just decide he wants a thing and then set it up and have it, and it's his. So, I mean, like I said, for the purposes of the show and character development, sure, I'll go along for the ride.
Nice. So then we go to maybe a financial office, maybe a dean. It's not entirely clear, but Ben is with this higher up at the college, and this man says that they didn't receive his last tuition payment. Yikes. This dean or financial officer says that he called Ben's parents, but his dad basically said, I don't know, talk to Ben about it. So Ben's like, yeah, I think he's trying to teach me a lesson, but not really coming across like I don't really know what he's trying to teach me. But this guy says, well, you could take out a loan or apply for financial aid, which I don't think you can do either of those at the end of the school year. So I was like, I don't know that that's really helpful.
Well, maybe predatory loans, they'll loan you money anytime.
Sure, yeah. But like a student loan, I thought there was like a certain filing time for all that type of stuff. But yeah, you can, or you could gamble.
Yeah, that's another solution. But how incredibly whack is that his dad didn't even give him a heads up, like, hey, your tuition's donezo. Who does that? That's crazy. That's so weird that, I mean, I know he's not a cool dude, but he didn't even tell him? He gave him no notice? It just happened?
I feel like a couple episodes ago, his dad was like, I'm cutting you off. And that's why he like started freaking out about money.
But like, why did he then believe that the tuition was going to get paid? He didn't say, I'm getting a job and I'm going to write a check so I can pay my tuition. Like, that wasn't in his head. I think he just meant maybe his spending money, disposable income type of stuff.
Like the rent and all that.
Yeah, but not his education, his actual tuition. So I think that's why he was caught off guard. Because I do remember his dad saying that, but Dean and DeLuca's not going to pay that bill.
Not going to pay any bills.
No.
Yeah. But basically now he has about $3,200 of a loan already outstanding now. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, Julie, return the guitar, get the money back. Because I'm like, oh, Ben. I know Sean put it in his head that he had to buy her something nice, but I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have spent that money on that guitar and just paid your tuition. And I feel bad for him.
You know what he should have done? My school paid pretty well for the nude models for our figure drawing classes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
He's got in there. He could have done that.
The writer should have came up with that. That could have been a whole storyline. This is terrible.
And then he would have been posing in a class and someone would have come visited him and there's Eli drawing him and we could have gotten more Eli in there. Eli and a nude pen.
And that would definitely inspire Felicity to get back into her art.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Todd Mulcahy. Just make Ben a nude model.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, what a missed opportunity.
I love that, actually.
If a reboot happens, we really need to be consultants.
He'd be like the most requested model for all of the classes. So then back at Kelvin, Felicity and Elena are coming back from classes and they run into Noel in the lobby who wants to talk to Felicity. And before Elena gives them their time together, she like gives Noel the side eye. Felicity's like, it's okay, Elena. I'm fine. We're good. But Elena's just she is there. She is there for Felicity.
She's committed.
But Felicity and Noel go to Epstein to chat. And he tells her then that she basically persuaded him to stay and not move out of the dorm and resolve things. Even though I'm not sure what there is left to say. Like, even in the last episode, them saying like, oh, we haven't figured things out yet. I'm like, I thought you both said you couldn't forgive each other and you were done. So I'm still like, what is there to figure out? But I think they both just love to like talk and overanalyze everything. So maybe that's where that's coming from.
Maybe to be friends or not be friends. Like what? And there's still a boundary there that can be drawn and figured out. Like, how much are we going to interact? Are we just going to be cordial and say hi to each other when we pass each other by? Are we going to go to birthday parties together? What are the parameters around that? So that makes a little bit of sense. Like, one might need more space than the other. So it would be nice to be informed and have a mutual understanding and not just mess up.
Yeah.
And then somebody feels bad because they didn't say anything.
That's true. And they do figure that out this episode. But again, Noel says that they both did bad things and hurt each other, which again, like, you did the bad thing first. Yeah, maybe what she did hurt you, but it wasn't to hurt you, and it wasn't.
It's not.
And it wasn't. Yeah, like,
thing.
it wasn't a bad thing to him. She did something. His feelings were hurt, but it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, feelings got hurt, but
she didn't do a bad thing.
They didn't both do bad things. Yeah, she was just living her life
while he was living his. And Felicity says and hopes that maybe they can try again. Then she says that she keeps thinking about why it all happened with Hannah and Eli for both of them. So she says that the best thing she thinks is to start over and to try to become friends again. Noel's like, oh, friends. Oh, okay. Yeah, like, we can do that. And Sean interrupts with his camera, like, hey, guys, just keep talking. I'm going to film. And they're both like, excuse me? Like, what? Of course we mind. Get out of here. And again, I think it's fun. Like, that's Sean's MO. And I thought it was funny because, yeah, again, it's this very serious conversation. And then it breaks up with a little bit of comic relief. So I thought it was funny.
Well, that's one time he had a good eye for drama.
Yeah.
Other times he wasn't reading the room. And that's why he was kind of buffooning his way into conversations. This time, he may have actually spotted something that was film-worthy. So, yeah, good for him. He did it this time.
I think he would have been a good, like, Bravo producer or Bachelor producer.
He's persistent.
Yeah. He's intrusive. He's not afraid to get in there. No situational awareness.
Yeah, no boundaries.
Exactly.
Just jump right in.
So then in McGrath's seminar, which I think was just as pretentious as the drama class that Ben had to go to, he was like, oh, we learn so much when we're not being pragmatic, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, McGrath, whatever. I thought it was very stuck up. But yeah, Elena's kind of looking at the clock, looking at the door. We can tell Felicity's not there. And she shows up in a rush from her talk with Noel. So she's late to the seminar. And just as she sits down, McGrath wraps up and she's basically missed the entire class. And misses the whole final project assignment. And everyone else was assigned a partner, but her. Elena's in like a 3-way project.
You know what? If you're going to be that late, I would not come at all.
Yeah.
I literally would just go step in front of a car and then go to the hospital and be like, I was in the hospital. Yeah. I'd pay somebody to run over my foot. Like, just like, you've already pissed him off to start with.
I would go step into traffic.
No, I mean, I would choreograph it. So you're like, okay, run it over this amount.
She's like, I would pull a Todd Mulcahy and end up in the hospital.
No, just my foot. Just my foot. Yep. I would coordinate this with someone.
Get the cop who like helped her when she got mugged to call McGrath and be like, oh, she was mugged again.
Poor girl.
She was looking at a lot of mug shots and it took hours.
Yeah, just get a doctor's note.
I would sincerely not even go at that point. that's so late.
Yeah.
There's no point to showing up. And is it like an open-ended class where you don't know when it's going to end or what?
That was the dumb part.
Yeah.
Like, you know it's going to end in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
She's not so smart when it comes to teachers.
No.
No.
Because then she goes up to McGrath because she's going to try and persuade him to still partner her up with Elena for the project. But of course he says no, because he's going to teach her a lesson for being late. And so she kind of complains a little bit and says, like, wait, so now I have to do twice as much work as everyone else. He says, are you whining? Like, well, that was gross. But she says, I was, but I'll stop. So now she's kind of accepted her fate. So at least she didn't, well, in this moment, continue to belabor the point, like, do you hate me and all that stuff. So I feel like she's learned a little bit. Like, she still went up, as Melissa's mom would say, it doesn't hurt to ask.
It doesn't hurt to ask. There you go. What I would have done, though?
Well, besides stepping in front of a car.
I would have had Elena. No, yeah, that's plan A. Plan B is have Elena ask. Because if she's already perceived her to be, like, a teacher's pet, so to speak.
The favorite.
Favorite? I'd be like, make it sound like you want me to be your partner, not like I want Elena to be my partner. You know what I mean? Like, come on, girl. Put your heads together.
Or she shouldn't have even asked Elena. Elena should have been like, oh, man, my friend's in trouble. I'm going to use my connection, you know?
Right? And just been like, I know she'll partner with me. Don't assign me anywhere else. Don't worry, we've got it covered.
I really don't want to work with those 2 yahoos. Can I please work with Felicity? I'll fill her in on all the details that she missed. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're right.
Something. So there's so many different ways could have been avoided, but here we are.
Well, next we get a whole nother set of confessionals where Sean talks to Guy and Elena and Lynn and Chloe the librarian. So in Elena's confessional with Sean, she talks about how she had set up all these rules for herself on how she wanted to act or how she wanted to be in college. Like, never let them see you cry, never let them know that she doesn't come from money. But after she saw that everyone else was just as scared as her in college, she started to loosen up a bit. We hear Guy say that he wasn't very popular in high school, and even though he's still not very popular in college, he does like college better. We also hear Lynn say that people think he's a cliche because he has this accent, but he's actually smart. He knows who Ayn Rand is. He's like, I know what the bell jar is. So that's kind of funny. And then, we see Chloe, who talks about why she loves being a librarian. And then Sean and her get cute and he kisses her. And I was like, wait, the way that you left this like a week or two ago, or an episode or two ago, I thought that she like stood him up and maybe they weren't dating anymore, because it was like, oh, the card catalog got mixed up and it just seemed like a lame excuse, but now they're kissing. So I was like, what happened there?
I thought that was a sincere excuse.
Okay.
And he just is so much of a man baby that he just got all hurt and decided to make it like this tragedy like he was talking about. I thought he just needs to grow up and wait until she's ready and there's not a work emergency. Just reschedule. I think that's all that was really happening. I think he blew it up and took it really personally.
I thought it was just like a little sprinkling of things might not be perfect between them. Just kind of like moving that in a certain direction. But we'll see.
Yeah, I thought it was like I have to wash my hair, I can't go out. I thought it was an excuse. But yeah, maybe it was real. Maybe card catalogs crash or whatever the excuse. I forgot what the exact verbiage was, but yeah, that could be it. He already thought the second date was doomed, and so then it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, he's very sensitive.
So then he's interviewing Ben again, and Sean asks Ben how coming here has affected his family, and Ben says that his parents actually split up, which we didn't know and Sean didn't know, and it happened just a couple weeks ago. His mom had finally had it and left, and Ben says he thinks that is for the best. So he actually does open up.
But where did Sean come up with that question? Like, naturally in the character, obviously the writers wanted this was some exposition, but where would Sean have come up with that? Because I don't recall Ben opening up to him once. Like, he's sprinkled some of that knowledge to other people, but you never see them sitting down and actually having meaningful conversations. It's like landlord and tenant kind of relationship. I mean, friendish enough, but
try my lactose.
Yeah. Be my guinea pig kind of thing. Like, recruit your friends to buy my stuff. But how would he know to ask something like that? That's kind of weird. That's not about college exactly. That's more about family dynamics. So that's interesting that he came up with that question.
Maybe again, he's astute and knew where the drama would be somehow.
Maybe that's his niche.
And then he interviews Noel, who talks about why he became an RA, which does make more sense talking about college, right? And Noel says that, first of all, he needed the money. And then second of all, he wanted to just help the freshmen. That when he was in his freshman year, he had a terrible RA named Harrison who like hated all the guys and slept with all the girls. And Sean was like, oh, like you did with Felicity? Hey.
That was awesome.
He was like, I didn't sleep with Felicity. And Sean asks him, why not? Didn't she sleep with this other guy? And that, of course, is going to piss Noel off. And so he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And yet Sean closes up his camera and Noel does start to explain that he did a bad thing. He explains the whole Hannah situation and that it threw him. Like the whole thing just made him start questioning everything. And he said, but nothing should have made me question what I had with Felicity. And that moment right there, I was like, oh, he finally said, like, that's what I feel like I've been waiting for the last few episodes from him is like, doesn't really matter what Hannah was doing or all this other stuff. That's what it comes down to. I just wanted him to say that for the last few episodes. Like, you questioned all this stuff. Like, that is the thing that you did wrong. And I feel like he finally got, like, it took him a while, but I feel like, okay, maybe he's gotten there a little bit.
Yeah, that was good. But it seems like he gets thrown easily often. He's said that before about different situations, like, oh, it just threw me. It's like, okay, steady yourself, grow up a little bit with your trench coat.
Yeah, I think trench coat Noel is gone. He gone.
Well, that's only for Hannah. Yeah, that Noel doesn't exist in Kelvin
He's
Hall.
gone.
Yeah. So Sean, of course, says, oh my gosh, this is the documentary, Noel and Felicity. And Noel's like, what? No, I don't, this isn't right. He's like, I just can't get the image of Eli and Felicity out of my mind. He says that he thought about going to counseling. I was like, yeah, go do that. But then he says, I thought about hypnotism. And Sean's like, yeah, you should do that. I'm like, no, do the other one. Like, go to therapy, not hypnotism. So, yeah, I was like, you were so close. And then, I don't know. He always takes advice from people he shouldn't be taking advice from, like Sean and Richard. So,
Richard. Well, some therapists are capable of doing hypnosis, and that's part of their therapy thing. But in the credits, it just says hypnotist for this guy's character. It doesn't say counselor so-and-so or something. So it seems suspicious. I think he's just a hypnotist, not any kind of counselor that's regulated by any authority whatsoever.
Well, yeah, and Sean positioned it as like some guy that his friend used to quit smoking.
Yeah.
So again, I'm like, well, if that's addiction, you would think maybe there's some other psychiatry or psychology aspect to it, but I don't know. If it's just like quitting bad habits, then yeah, maybe there's no counseling aspect to it. Maybe. So yeah, now Sean is encouraging Noel to actually go do hypnotism. But then we go to Dean and DeLuca, and Lynn visits Ben at work. Lynn's wearing another bucket hat. You'll be happy to know.
Barf.
I like that one. I thought it was cute.
I like all of them. So
Yeah.
I specifically admired that one.
It wasn't crocheted this time though, but it had a different design.
It kind of was. Oh. It looked like it was like really thick material. It looked like thick yarn.
And Lynn invites Ben out to go bowling with him and Nicole, but Ben's like, nah, I can't. I have to close up tonight. He hands Lynn his whole measly paycheck and tells him to put it all on some basketball, I assume a basketball game. But Lynn says that Barry won't take something that paltry, that little tiny paycheck. So Ben's like, well, then double it. Like, sure, why not? Okay, like, let's just create fake money and double it. He says he's good for it, but of course, we know he's not because he can't even pay his tuition.
What a fool.
Come on, Ben. Thought you were smarter than this.
He's desperate. Yeah.
He's in emotion mind instead of rational mind. So he's making
literally
bad decisions.
Fight or flight mode, as we'll see later.
Oh yeah, good one, girl.
So then Sean kind of surprises Felicity in the hall with a camera in her face, wanting to interview her, and she says no. But the way she like kind of dips her head and scampers away from the camera, I just thought it was so hilarious. Like Kerry Russell does these very small things that just are so funny for the character. Like, she could just be like, no, and walk away, but she like dips her head to like, I don't want to be like to hide from the camera, even though it's like, you're still on camera.
Like he's the paparazzi.
Yeah, or that too. And she just kind of like scampers away with her head down. I just thought it was so funny. Sean tells the camera, selfie mode, that he's going to make her the co-star of the documentary, but she just doesn't know it yet. So then we get into the other confessionals again. Guy says basically he's going to be a late bloomer. He thinks when he's older, he's going to just land a bunch of chicks later on. And then we go over to Julie, who is now talking about Hannah. And I guess Sean asked her, like, what do you think about her? And she's like, some would say that she's manipulative, but I just think she was lonely.
Whatever.
And then we go into Elena, juxtaposed next to that. She's like, Felicity, she's my girl. We're together all the time. And when something's hard for her, it's hard for me too. And I'm like, you position those two things next to each other. I'm like, Julie, I don't even think that you're friends with Felicity. Like, you just said Hannah was not manipulative and she's just lonely. Right. Some people would say she was manipulative. I'm like, you mean your supposed best friend? Like, what? That blew my mind. The two interviews next to each other.
Elena, amazing. Awesome friend to have. I love that she said if something's hard for her, it's hard for Elena. Like, that's so sweet.
Yes, that was good. I love that. Because she said it was so genuine too. Like, she like really meant it. She looked like she was going through it too.
Well, and I feel like we've also seen, even just in the one episode with Tara, like, you saw that kind of dedication and loyalty with Tara too. And so now it's like, that's how she is going to be with Felicity. So yeah, that really came through.
She's probably a Leo.
Very happy.
Yeah,
she is.
Like that loyalty. Sure. Like,
yeah.
love hard, but like if somebody like screws you over, it's like you're gone.
And she like owns the room when she walks in. She's got great style, great hair. Yeah.
She's got to be a Leo. We got to figure out her birthday. We'll get on that.
So then we see Felicity knocks on Noel's door, and she comes in. He's working on the graphics for Docuventary. And she starts to talk about linguine because he knows her pasta theory. And that made me sad because it was kind of like the beet allergy thing between him and Hannah. She's like, oh, did you know he's allergic to beets? Like, this, it was another little moment that showed how well they knew each other and how close they used to be. So it was very cute, but very sad because clearly they were very close. But she explains that, yeah, linguine was on the menu this week. And so now she has this whole huge project to do for McGrath. Has to do all these graphs and things, and she needs Photoshop, which is on his computer, of course. And so she wants to use his computer, and he says, oh, great, go for it. Like, I'll just read on my bed while you work on my computer, like the old days, right? And this reminded me, I don't know, just like Felicity loves to overstep boundaries or like force on people the situation she thinks like we should be able to do all of these things. And so I'm going to force that in the moment. And so she thinks like we should be friends, we should be good. I can work on a computer while you're in the room and it's all dimly lit and everything's fine, right? But I don't know. It was also very awkward because Noel is reading, but like looking up at her. And then she needs help on Photoshop. So he gets up and hovers over her and like, you know, does the mouse and whatever she needs in this dimly lit room. He sits back down again and is clearly stressing out. And then he's like, you know what? This isn't going to work. I can't just sit here and pretend nothing happened. She's like, oh, I wasn't pretending. I was working. He's like, well, fine. I was pretending.
She's so clueless.
And he's like, well, fine. I was pretending. He's like, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but he's just like, I can't start over and be friends again, at least not right now. So again, like, I know he's saying he's not trying to make her feel guilty. She probably does still feel guilty though. But I do appreciate that at least this time he drew the line early and made it known, didn't step around it and keep trying things and just making everyone unhappy. So I did appreciate that. But then, yeah, Felicity leaves and Sean's waiting outside the room with a camera and she, again, scampers away. At least he wasn't in the room interrupting all of that. But yeah, uncomfortable between Noel and Felicity.
I did appreciate that as well, that he was actually honest and yes, drew the line very early. Like, okay, I know this isn't going to work. This is uncomfortable. And I think that was realistic. I think that's grounded in reality that oftentimes when people break up, they don't remain friends in real life. So I think that was reflective of a more realistic outcome. Just because they're in the same dorm doesn't mean they're going to be friends. Again, they could be cordial, say hi, but it's interesting that she's like, no, let's make this work, force a relationship.
Especially so soon. Like, it's still just happened not that long
Yeah, let
ago.
it breathe.
Yeah.
And to me, it was such an intimate first step. Like, we've seen previous scenes when they were together of them just like hanging out at his computer together, like doing homework together, napping, spooning. And like, it wasn't, hey, let's all go to Epstein Bar and hang out for an open mic night in a group setting or just being cordial. It was like the two of them alone, door closed, in his room, dimly lit, like doing things we used to do. I don't know. Yeah, it felt very intimate to me for like the first step of, can we even be friends again? So yeah, she was just trying to be like forcing the situation. So then we see a confessional with Daryl, which was kind of out of left field.
Odd.
It was very odd. I don't know how Sean met Daryl, but yeah, he interviews Daryl about the Felicity Noel situation, and he loses points with me immediately because he says, oh, Felicity, nah, she's out. She got down with some other guy. And I was just like, what's with these men and this bro code that's going on? It's really pissing me off.
Yeah, I was like, he's a little less hot now. Yeah. I thought it was funny, though, the way he was talking about it. It was just kind of a silly thing. Like, I'm not taking this seriously. This is just Daryl being Daryl, I guess. Like, whatever.
And then
he said, get down.
He said, got down.
So funny. That's what cracked me up. He's like, yeah, but she got down. He's like, what about Noel? He's like, he didn't get down with him. Felicity got down. So he made that distinction. He had at least a boundary there that he was following. Yeah.
And then Sean interviews Ben again and asks him how it feels to be replaced by Eli. And Ben's like, what? What are you talking about? He said, well, it used to be Ben or Noel. Now it's Eli or Noel. Like, are you jealous? And Ben says no. But to me, it wasn't very convincing. Like, they left like a little bit of a pause after he's like, no, I'm not jealous. There was a little bit of a pause there that felt maybe intentional.
I'll have to go back and watch that because I don't remember it, but
okay.
I thought he looked really good in that scene, though.
He looks good in the whole episode. I will give it to you. Like,
he did look extra good this episode. I don't know what was going on. It was the hair.
As a kid, I didn't think he was hot when we were 11 and watching this. Like, Noel was definitely my type. But then as I've gotten older, I see how hot Ben is. But like,
thank you.
Early season 1, I still don't really see it. Now is when I'm like, okay, yeah, he's hot. He's hot in this episode for sure.
Damn, I just got chills.
Heather admits Ben's hot.
Heather will be converted.
No, I've already started thinking thoughts that I would like to share, but I feel like we have to get a little bit later on in the series, so more to come.
Okay,
but
sure.
All right. It's happening.
It's really happening.
I've rewatched this so many times. I don't think that big of a leap will happen. Maybe I will just say it now then. I'm definitely less of a Noel girl. Like, I'm a team Noel for nostalgia, but I think I might have said this in the premiere. As I've gotten older, I'm just more like team Felicity. Like, you don't have to pick one of these guys.
Sure.
Like, you're in college, you're so young. Go live your life. Go be a doctor. Go be an artist. Do whatever. Like, you're gonna meet tons of men. These two that doesn't have to be your only choice. So that's like kind of where I stand now. I don't know if I'll ever be like team Ben, but I'm definitely less team Noel than I was as a kid. I will give you all that.
All right.
Guess what? That just reminds me of another 90210 connection. I didn't plan this, but you said some stuff. There's an episode, and it's a famous line that Kelly says because Brandon proposes to her. I don't care if it's spoiled. This is a million years old. And Dylan offers her a trip around the world. And they're like, you got to choose one of us. Like, stop playing, girl. And she said, I choose me. And now Jenny Garth has a podcast coming out that's called I Choose Me.
Oh.
And yeah. So that's the like brand new thing that's rolling out. So that's current events and a connection to the show. That. You're welcome.
Yeah, I choose Felicity.
There you go.
Oh yes. So then Guy knocks on Noel's door and invites him to go to Conan because he's invited like 12 other girls who all said no, but Noel is the first guy that he's invited, so he should feel honored in that sense, I guess. But Noel's heading out to the hypnotist, so they walk out together. So Noel's going through with that. Meanwhile, Felicity is presenting her project idea to McGrath, and her thesis or her paper, whatever it is that love is genetic, that everything is predetermined by genes, I guess. So she thinks, or the hypothesis is, that everyone is pre-programmed to connect with someone else who is pre-programmed to be compatible with. I think this is an interesting idea because Felicity is so emotional and often acts on a gut instinct or is very impulsive. But I like how this kind of shows she still does have that logical scientific brain that's trying to figure stuff out. Like, what's the reasoning behind all of this? I just thought it was a cute balance with some of her more emotional sides that she's like still from a scientific perspective trying to figure out what happened with Noel.
Yeah, because she's lovesick. I said, what in the hell is this project? If I was McGrath, I would say, get the fuck out of here. Come back when you're not telling me jokes, okay? Right? Get out. Come back when you're gonna stop playing games. Let's be serious.
He seemed to approve.
I thought that was disgusting.
He was like, oh, and what's your methodology? Okay, great. Don't be pragmatic.
I thought it was fair that he asked the methodology part, but I was like, what in the fuck is she talking about? Mm-hmm. She's so lovesick.
Get out of this program. Yeah. You turd. What is wrong with you?
He's like, oh, damn, I really shouldn't have let her into this seminar, should I?
Yeah, it's like, are you setting this girl up for failure? So you can just really be like, this is fucked up. This doesn't make any sense. Like, why on earth would he let her do that project? It's so weird. But I did Google because I was like, I need to know what the fuck is up. Like, is there any merit to this? Because I was so shocked that she was actually doing this and he was going along with it. And she mentioned some qualities. I just picked trust as one of them. And it turns out there's 33% heritability, like genetic heritability of trust. They did like a twin levels, study or something. I found
like
one.
You're predetermined for a certain level of trust?
Something like that. I didn't read the articles. I was just going through the Google results and just kind of scrolling through the little headlines of them. And I'm like, what? So there is something to it, but I thought this was like the wackiest bullshit.
You go. She's not ridiculous.
No, it's still ridiculous. Like, be serious. Like, do an actual I'm a med student kind of thing, you know? Like, if you're going to be pre-med, be pre-med. Don't do all this, like, that sounds like literature. You know, like, let's be in love and, like, do romantic book kind of stuff. Go that way with that. Go pre-med with pre-med, you know? What are you doing? That was bonkers.
I think it felt very Felicity to do.
I appreciate your perspective. I can see you reaching, and good for you.
I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just saying it feels very Felicity to be like head and heart blending all this stuff. It makes sense.
That's true.
Not saying it was right.
She wishes. Oh, so you know how I talk about emotion mind and rational mind? Where they overlap is wise mind.
How does that work?
That's the thing. I'll show you. We should put a graphic in the show notes or something. I show this to my patients all the time. You got rational mind and emotion mind, and where they overlap in the middle is wise mind. Because two seemingly opposing things can be true at the same time. So you can have a really emotion-based type of perspective and rational, and they are happening at the same time. And we need to learn how to integrate those more and not be overly loaded in one or the other. Because like rational mind, if too rational, that's also problematic. The problem is imbalance, not emotions in and of themselves. So there's my little spiel about that. So I could appreciate there's a little bit of an integration with the emotion and the rational. I'll give that to you, but I don't like it.
She's got all these emotions and she's trying to think logically and rational. She's trying to
make some meaning out of it. Yeah,
she's trying to like be logical about what the heck is going on in her life.
I'll let you have that one.
1 point.
Right.
I'll take what I can get.
You've got like -1 million though for your other points.
I know. So I got 1 though.
You got to dig yourself out of the hole like Ben.
Exactly. It just gets worse from here though. So Sean goes with Noel to the hypnotist and, you know, a very funny scene ensues. Noel tells him about the image of Felicity and Eli. So he gets hypnotized to feel calm the next time he thinks about Felicity and Eli together. And then Sean's like, oh, can you also make him think that water is lemon juice? And the hypnotist is like, yeah, that's easy. And we see Noel drink a glass of water and then spit it out. And it's very funny. And I still love Noel, sorry.
Psychologist in me was just like, that's so unethical. We don't do stuff just to be funny.
It's because I was going to say, he's not a psychologist.
He's just a hypnotist.
I still didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable, but it was funny.
It was, but for the sake of the show, it was funny.
I love a good spit take.
Yeah. And then Sean finally gets Felicity to talk to him on camera, of course. And he asks Felicity, like, what's the biggest lesson you've learned this year? And for Felicity, it's that relationships are hard. She says, you're doing the best you can, and then all of a sudden, this thing happens, this tornado that comes out of nowhere. It might not be anyone's fault, or maybe it had been brewing for a while, and neither of you knew it. She says, everything is just ripped apart. It's all blown open, and you're just left there to figure out what goes where. She says, sometimes the person you thought you'd be with for a long time, well, sometimes you're wrong. And that is my angsty away message for the week. Sometimes the person you think you'd be with for a long time, well, sometimes you're wrong. And I think that means I get let out of podcast jail now, since I forgot to do one last week. So hopefully I redeemed myself and I'm a good podcast co-host again. And she wraps up by saying relationships are hard. They just are. So I thought that was interesting too, because she starts talking about how things had been brewing for a while and neither of you knew it. And I think Noel makes a point later that maybe speaks even further to what was going on. I don't feel like we saw in the show that things had been brewing for a while, so maybe this is kind of how they're like in retrospect explaining all of this stuff, because it felt like very out of left field for me. So this might be how they're trying to explain it.
I've got some thoughts about his comment later when we get there. More questions than thoughts, actually.
So then at Epstein, Ben and Julie are sitting together in a booth. Julie's just kind of like bored because Ben is listening to the game that he bet on his Walkman again. And he's very stressed out. He's like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, and it looks like he loses his bet. The game does not go in his favor. And Julie asks him how much he lost, which I think was interesting because I don't remember seeing Ben telling her about all this gambling he's doing. So I thought it was interesting that she does know what he's doing, that he let her in on that. But he says, not much. She's like, well, how much is not much? And he was like, just like, not much, okay? Like he was getting very snippy with her. Then Sean comes up, interrupts them with his camera. Ben's like, Sean, dude, not right now. This is not a good time. And he gets up to leave the table to go talk to Lynn, who's working at the bar. And he tells Lynn, like, oh, the Clippers or whoever just lost. Lynn's like, oh, yeah, I guess I should have warned you. I didn't feel good about that game. Should have said something. But he's like, oh, well, sometimes the cookie crumbles. And Ben's like, nah, I need a loan. And Lynn's like, just go to the ATM. Like, what, are you wiped clean? And, of course, Ben says, yeah, I am.
Just go to the ATM.
Just go get some cash.
Can I do that too when I want some money?
I know.
There's just a money machine out there and you could go get money from it.
If there was money in your account to back it up, yeah, in a perfect world, you could do that. But no, Ben is wiped clean. And Julie's still watching Ben from afar at the table while Sean is still bugging her about the documentary and trying to film her and ask questions, and she's not paying attention, so tension is starting to build here in this scene. Ben continues to tell Lynn, like, look, I need a loan. I just need one more win to get me out of this hole. And Lynn's like, look, you never put money down unless you've got something to fall back on. That's like gambling 101, apparently. And so Lynn's like, no, like, I'm not going to call Barry for you to use this money or to, I guess, get a loan or put down money. I don't know how gambling works, but he wants to put more money in somehow.
I think he wanted to make another bet so he could recoup what he lost.
But like he needed a loan to do that from Lynn because he has no money anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's Lynn's role in that scheme.
So Ben's like, fine, you're not going to help me. I'll go find someone else who will take my money. So Ben goes back to the table and is going to leave, tells Julie he's leaving, but then Lynn follows him. He comes over. He's like, Ben, please, I'm begging you, just don't do this. Ben's like, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. Lynn's like, but I do worry about my dumb friend, Ben, which I didn't love. Like, why, I know it's kind of like playful, but at the same time, like, this isn't the time to call him dumb.
Yeah. No. I mean, you're not the brightest either, Lynn.
Exactly.
Let's not call each other dumb. Also, he was the one that was like encouraging him in the first place and was like, oh, make it 200 instead of 100 whenever the first bet happened.
Yes, but it seems like Lynn has some boundaries on how, don't bet unless you have something to fall back on. I think he has a little bit more self-control and restraint, clearly. And I just want to give another shout out to him, though. He said, this was an earlier scene, and I forgot to say it when they were talking about it. He said, you're a little cuter than me, but I kick your ass in the pool. I thought that was so funny. Like, one of their exchanges they had, he had said that. I think it was when they were at Dana and DeLuca. I don't know. But I thought that was hilarious. I like Lynn.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I think it was like in a we're really good friends, I'm teasing you, like, oh, I care about my dumb friend Ben. Like,
oh, for sure, that was not good timing.
I don't think he realized how dialed up Ben was,
how amped up.
Yeah, exactly. So and Lynn like literally is trying to help and like get him like, don't do this, but he's like, you know what, get off of me. And Ben pushes him, and yeah, once dudes lay a hand on another dude, like that's when shit goes down. And so then they start shoving each other, and then they end up on the floor. We see Sean's camera work. It's all over the place. We don't really get to see who's punching who or what's happening. It looks like other people jump in to break them up, but we don't really see how that whole situation was resolved. But not great. And this is, these are the parts when I'm not Team Ben, and it's really hard for me to get over like the very quick jump to anger and violence. So it's just, it's sad because that's his good friend so far.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I think this was Ben's ugliest moment as opposed to his hottest moment.
True.
If that was the thing. But I was thinking about where this comes from. Obviously, my psych stuff was sprinkled in. And I hate it, though. I don't think this is any amount cool. I'd break up with him on the spot. If I was Julie, I'd be like, goodbye. But for him, you said Lynn didn't realize how dialed up he was. I don't think Ben did either. I think he didn't have the self-awareness of like, I need to like just go get some air or something and not even keep talking to Lynn, just walk away or something. But I think his models for emotional regulation, his mother and his father, it seems like his mother did more suppressing and avoiding, and his dad obviously was more explosive. So I think he wasn't talking to people about his financial stuff. He was like kind of suppressing and avoiding, and then he had his explosion. So he kind of had a combination, I feel, of both of those models.
Well, and yeah, I mean, we said before, like, he's desperate. And so I think he was just fight or flight. Yeah. And that's why I said fight or flight, because, like, literally he's just like, I have to figure this out. This guy's in my way of doing that. Again, I'm not saying violence is correct or a good thing to do. But yeah, like, he was just like, get away from me. Like, don't hold me back. I need to figure this out for myself. And Dr. Joe, you've talked about this before too. Like, he wants to handle everything on his own. He doesn't want input from anyone else. Yeah. And yeah, if his dad is violent, he's probably learned some of that behavior too from him, which is unfortunate.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's so good at helping other people in his life who are in turmoil that when it happens to him, he's like not prepared to realize that he has a problem and he needs to help himself.
And he needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true for a lot of therapists too. We're helpers, and we're the worst. We are the worst people to ask for help. The last person to ask for help.
I don't want to insult Melissa. I was going to say those who can't do teach, right? So it's like, you know, I don't know how to take my own advice, right? So I'll tell everyone how to solve their problems, but I don't know how to do it for myself, right? Not saying you can't do art. You're a very good artist.
Fuck you, man. I'm the best artist.
Those who can't therapize themselves, therapize others.
That's real. There's a lot of people that are messed up in this field, and I'm not going to name names.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh.
And then we do get some comic relief, though. So Sean goes to interview Megan, who says that living with Felicity is like having a TV that's always playing Little House on the Prairie, but with more sweaters. And I just love her. She's so funny. And then we get confessional with Elena again, who's still talking about Noel and Felicity. And she says that she can't believe Noel went off with Hannah. She's like, I thought I knew this guy. She's like, and then Felicity went off with Eli. She's like, I never thought she would do something like that. So she's just like, who are these people? What's going on? So she's, still supportive of Felicity, but she's like, both of these people are acting crazy. And then Richard chimes in his interview and says that he liked it better when Felicity and Noel were together because he used to bribe them and get everything that he wanted. And Megan says, oh, what's my advice for Felicity and Noel? Well, Noel, like, she slept with some other dude. Get over it. And I'm like, yeah, that's right, Megan. Like, Megan is right. Just get over it. And Richard brings up the minnow one more time from summer camp and how the same thing happened to him that happened to Noel with the minnow who was still in the shallow end of the pool. And we hear from Megan again, who says, Noel, for the last time, any other time you ever ask me if I've seen Felicity, here's my answer. I haven't seen Felicity. Love it. I feel like she continues to say that throughout the show, though. Like, I feel like she says that a number of times on the show, like, the last time I haven't seen Felicity. And then we get Noel telling Sean that he says, like, I'm sure I can move on from Felicity. He's like, it's got to be possible. But Sean says, you know what? I need a happy ending for my documentary. Like the guy with the steel mill, they, I guess, didn't have to work in the steel mill anymore, and it was a very bittersweet ending.
It didn't get closed down.
Oh, it didn't get closed. They
like
got to work in the steel. That was a positive thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So they kept their jobs at the steel mill, and it was a very, it was a tearjerker. And Noel's like, what? So I'm just supposed to like change my life so you can have a happy ending? And Sean's like, well, yeah, that'd be great. But Noel says, you know what? Just at the end of the day, Felicity did not feel the same way for me that I felt about her. And Sean calls bullshit on it. He's like, you know what? That's crap. He shows him the previous footage that we saw Felicity shooting, where she says that relationships are hard, but now we get a little bit more revealed. There's a little bit more that she said after that. And so Noel gets to see Felicity say that, you know, it's like the saying of you don't know what you've got until it's gone. She says, of course, only now do I realize, she says, that she was in love with him. And I start crying because it was so sad.
I can't believe I didn't cry because I've been crying at the drop of a hat lately.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so cold-hearted.
I was like, that's the first time she said that to him, and it was on camera, and to Sean, and it just broke my heart. But Noel does get a little bit of a glimmer in his eye when he hears it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big glimmer. He was really excited at his little eyeballs.
But I think here was revealed, he says, you know, she never felt about him the way he felt about her. And I think that really does summarize everything. Like, he was just insecure about her the whole time, that he had to wait for her. He had to try and stand out, you know, more than Ben. We saw that in Gimme an O. And so I think, yeah, the whole thing just came down to his insecurity. His ex-girlfriend came back into the picture. That was maybe easy, comfortable. He didn't maybe feel like he had to fight for her. I don't know. And that's what threw him. So I think that just like finally gave us some clarity on like what the heck happened and why he went back to Hannah.
I did not perceive it that way at all. That statement, Felicity never felt for me what I felt for her, and that's just the truth. And I was going to pose it to you, like, is it? Do you agree or disagree, and why? And I was going to set a 1 minute timer, but I don't even want to do that now because we're coming at it from completely different angles. I thought that he was saying she never cared about me as much as I cared about her. I cared about her way more than she cared about me. And not owning his insecurity stuff, I think he just thought that she blew him off or something, like she didn't really care about him this whole time.
I'm not saying he admitted he was insecure. I think it's like the writers were telling us finally, like, this was the reason and what was going on. I think it was an insecurity of his. I don't think he's realizing it's an insecurity, but we finally saw that that's what is going through his mind, that like she didn't love him as much as he loved her. Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, I knew that the whole time, so I wasn't. I felt that way the whole time. But do you think that's true? I mean, would you think that he did care about her more than she cared about him?
I mean, that was the way it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
She was still getting over Ben or whatever. But I think once they were actually together, I think she really genuinely like...
It was mutual.
Yeah.
Same. Once they were officially together, I think she did care as much as him. But there are things happening in the future, so I will have more to say on that later.
Yep. Yeah.
That I don't want to spoil things yet for those who are new to Felicity.
Right.
But I think once they were together, yes, they had the same feelings.
It was balanced out.
But in the lead up and in the dating, I can understand why he was still so insecure.
Okay.
Listeners, let us know. What do you think? Is Noel like, you know, is he insecure for no reason? Let us know.
Let's do a poll.
Yeah.
I want to do a million polls now.
Let's do it.
To be our new
Yeah.
thing. But I was thinking it was a false statement, even aside from the insecurity thing, because he did leave with Hannah. And he said he was, you know, it threw me, her coming back, and that should have never been questioned. So it's like, how can you say, oh, she didn't feel the same way about me as I did about her when you walked out with another woman? That makes it ring false for me. That's what I was taking away from that. I was like, no.
Yeah, to me, he left with Hannah because it was easy and he didn't question how Hannah felt for whatever reason. I don't know. She also had some other dude at Northwestern. So yeah, I don't know why he has that different view. I just think like this made me understand maybe why he went back to what was easy or comfortable or known.
That makes sense. If he genuinely believes that,
but
that
I don't
makes
know.
sense.
I don't know what's going on in his head.
But he's wrong.
Right.
But he believes it, and that's what drove his behaviors.
No, I don't think he's like, oh, I realized this insecurity was wrong, and I don't think he's saying that here. I agree.
Yeah. We're on the same page.
We are. We're saying
Amazing.
saying the same thing in different ways.
No, you said it better than I was thinking it. I couldn't get there. I was just pissed off at him. I was like, no, you an asshole. We'll do that. Okay.
So then we go to the lobby where Felicity is studying in the dark, and Noel comes in from the elevator and sits down with Felicity, and she's surprised. She's like, I thought you were going to Conan. And he told Guy that he couldn't go, and so Guy took some stranger off the street. But he said that, you know, while he was getting on the subway, he had this vision of his future after college and not having the opportunity to live down the hall from someone like her. He's like, no, not someone like you. He then says he didn't feel the way he did about her because she hadn't slept with anyone, which I, again, finally appreciate that he said that. He, like, again, it took him a long ass time, but he finally got there. And then he said, if they can't figure out a way to get through this, then he underestimated what they are. And he says, I love you. He says, I have since I met you, and I'm sorry it took all this for me to say it. And she smiles. And see, I'm getting misty again. It was just, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm happy for Heather.
Thank you.
I'm happy for you.
I feel like I got a little bit more resolution or satisfaction from this episode than like the last two. So,
oh yeah, you got a little bit of redemption there.
It was a little bit of an arc. Yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect or he said everything right in this episode. He certainly did not. But I feel like there's finally some wheels turning and he's getting there. That's all I'll say.
I was just thinking, since I met you, I'm like, loved or wanted, like loved or lusted, because he didn't know her when he met her. He just saw a pretty girl in front of him. So how can you say, I loved you when I met you? Get out of here with that shit. I always felt like he was just had this crush on her and it wasn't really genuine until the farther down, but he kind of crushed on her immediately and it felt really superficial to me in the beginning. And I know that they shared all the stuff between each other and, you know, that probably grew over time, but I feel like it was like very physical attraction based for him off the get-go, and everybody wants to believe he's the nice guy and he really did love her, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think you just thought she was really cute.
I guess, yeah, it's an argument of does love at first sight exist or not?
No, it does not.
Don't get me started on that.
Not at all.
It's a whole another episode.
Let's do that's another poll. Make that a poll too.
Awesome. So then we end with some more documentary confessionals. Richard says he hopes that they get back together because he has a surround sound system that he wants to install and watch all of his nerdy movies on. Julie says that she hopes that they get back together. Guy says that he thinks they're good together, that it seems like there's some sort of destined chemistry that they have, and Noel's always stressed out about her, and she seems to, you know, really care about him too. And then we get Daryl's opinion again, and he says that if Noel forgives her, he's, you know, more of a man than Daryl is. He's like, or less of a man. Up to you.
He's like, you tell me. I thought that was the funniest thing he said. I thought that was the fucking funniest thing. He's either more of a man than I am or much less. You tell me. I was like, oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Because it is a matter of perspective. Some people would think more and some people would think less. And I thought that was brilliant. I love that. I thought that was so funny.
And then Megan says that if they get back together, she's going to vomit on the carpet right in front of him, right in front of Sean. And that's how we end the episode. And my question is Sally officially gone forever? That's the bigger mystery to me than Megan's box even. Where did Sally go? Justice for Sally.
Although I feel like Felicity's little speech where she said sometimes the person you thought you'd be with for a long time was like kind of like a Sallyism. Like she seemed like the Sally when she had that little talk.
Now.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think back. I'm like, do we ever hear from Sally again? I'm trying to think.
Well, I'm going to look it up right now.
Because I don't think
the
Jane
last
Garofalo
episode,
was
sure.
ever credited, so I don't think we can see like on IMDb how many episodes she was.
On IMDb, it says uncredited in parentheses. So she's still on there, but it's just a little bit harder to dig out because she's in so few episodes, so I have to go backwards. But I know she got phased out, but I didn't think it was this early. I felt like she got through the first season.
I know. I was just like, she's like, all this crazy stuff is happening with Felicity. Sally's nowhere.
That's whack. But that's what I was kind of thinking about. No, she was in 14 episodes. Let's see. Nope. She has a couple in season 2.
Oh.
So we do get her back. Good.
Yeah.
Sally, we need you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then I guess also with the documentary stuff and the interviews, they are kind of giving themselves their own advice and processing things. And
they're spitting a lot of knowledge.
and that's why I do like the documentary episode here, is because it does give them an opportunity to vent things out with what's going on between each other. And maybe it got Noel to face some of his shit a little bit and get over himself. But then also, yeah, Ben's situation is a cliffhanger. Like, he just got in a fist fight with his best guy friend, and we have no clue what happened and how they resolved that situation. So, yeah, I know, Dr. Joe, you weren't super psyched on rewatch of this, but I'm curious if you have changed some opinions and why on this episode.
I liked it more than usual. Just like many of the episodes I've said I didn't like watching in the past, but watching it this time, it's grown on me a little bit. So that happened again. I do think there was some really good humor in it, and I appreciate that, but there was just some stuff that was off the wall. I like that we saw Richard again. Oh, and I don't know if you noticed, when people were knocking on Noel's door, he said, "Go away, Richard," and it wasn't Richard, and that happened at least twice, and I don't know if Richard ever actually knocked on his door. Did you notice?
He did not.
Because one time it was Felicity, and one time it was Guy, and I don't know if it happened again, but I thought that was really clever that he knocked on his door 0 times, even though he kept on being like, "Go away, Richard."
Because Richard's always bugging him. No, Richard was only in the documentary, like, confessionals. Yeah. I do. So this, I guess, is maybe a mini spoiler. I do think the documentary stuff gets even better later on in the show.
Yes.
There's extra people that are part of the production team.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I do love that. Yeah.
But
yes, production team. It's very funny. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Alrighty, Hey Counter this week we had 11. It actually felt like more because there was a ton of different conversations happening, but only 11 Heys this week for all the haters out there.
Yes.
So documentary, we're getting close to the end of season 1 here, which is hard to believe, but things are getting pretty dramatic. We're just getting started to the arc that's going to take us to the end here. But it's been great chatting this week. Thank you again to all of our new listeners. We'll watch out for some polls on Instagram because we've got a lot of questions and we want to hear from you. So go and head over to Felicity Was Here Pod on Instagram. Make sure you comment or vote in some upcoming polls. And thanks always for listening. We'll see you back next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Felicity Was Here is produced, written, and edited by Heather, Melissa, and Dr. Joe. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Felicity Was Here Pod. If you're enjoying the pod, please leave us a review and help us spread the word. We appreciate you and would love to hear from Felicity superfans like us. So send us your feedback, ask us your burning questions, or just say hey at felicitywasherepod@gmail.com. We may even read your note in a future episode. Talk to you all next week.